can do.
Okay guys, so this time we will now discuss the chapter 2 or the resultant of force system. Okay, so again, my name is Engineer Brent Edward C. Ilagan, also known as Sir B, and I will be your instructor for this course subject. So let's proceed with the next slide. Okay, so 2.1, Introduction. So guys, yung i-discuss natin dito through PowerPoint is just a summary dun sa module na binigay natin sa LMS. So, I'm hoping na nabasa nyo na siya and meron na kayong some ideas about this discussion. Okay, so basahin natin. So, let me just get my pointer here. Okay, so the effect of a system of force on a body is usually expressed in terms of a resultant. Okay guys, so itong unang sentence na to is yung pinakamahalaga na definition kung tungkol ba saan itong topic na dinidiscuss natin. So basahin natin ulit ha. The effects of a system of forces on a body is usually expressed in terms of a resultant. So to make the discussion short, so ang ibig sabihin yan, yung dami ng force mong yan, for example, kung 5 man yan, 6, 7, 8, pwede mo siyang i-represent as a single force. So that is your resultant. So again, lahat ng force na yan, pwede mong pagsama-samahin sa iisang force lang na tinawag na resultant. So yun lang yan chapter na yan. Okay? So tapos na. That ends our discussion. Okay, joke na. So dyan lang tatakbo yung discussion natin doon sa single resultant force na yan, and then yung mga principle na kailangan yung alamin para sa chapter na ito. So the value of this resultant determines the motion of the body. Okay. So next, as we shall see, yan. So highlight ko na dito. If the resultant is 0, the body will be in equilibrium and will not change its original state of motion. So again, if the resultant is 0, therefore the body is in equilibrium, or it will not change its original state of motion. So this is the province of statics. Okay, so yan lang yung ating main concern. Dapat daw ang resultant mo is 0. But then again, since the book is all about engineering mechanics, we will also find the resultant which has a value. So kapag may value naman yung iyong resultant, if the resultant of a force system is not 0, then the body will have a varying state of motion, thereby creating a problem in dynamics. So again, if it's at rest, or the body is, or the resultant has a value of 0, therefore that is considered in statics. But if the resultant has a value and not 0, that is in the province of dynamics. Okay, so again, yung book natin is all about engineering mechanics, and then yung mechanics natin, meron tayong dalawang classes, static of rigid bodies and dynamics of rigid bodies. That's why we need to also discuss this topic, since yung ating dynamics will be discussed on your next subjects. Okay, so let's proceed with the next slide. Okay, so forces and components. Okay, so mag-illustrate lang tayo kung ano ba yung ibig sabihin dito ng mga equation na to. So we have here a pen. So I'm using now our digital pen. So let's say this is your y and your x axis. Again, we have here a force F. So we have here a force F, kung saan that is acting at an angle of theta x. So yung theta x na yan, that is coming from the x-axis. So that's why meron siyang naka-sub x. But then again, sometimes meron kang angle na ang ibibigay sa'yo is with respect dun sa y-axis natin. So I will denote that as theta y. Okay, so I hope guys you still remember yung principle ni trigo, na ano nga yung ano natin, trigonometric function, or yung tinatandaan natin. So di ba meron tayong tinatawag na TOA. So again, pa-review na lang ako nito kung naalimutan, but yung principle na yan na rin yung gagamitin natin dito. Again, so let's get back to this. So you have here a force F acting at an angle of theta with respect to the x-axis. So yung F na yan, since naka-inclined siya, ito can be solved by its component. Pwede mong mahanap ang component yan. Ito kasing force na to, meron siyang x component. So I will name this as F sub x. And at the same time, meron siyang y component. Sometimes this is called the horizontal and vertical component of the force. Okay, so with that, so if gagawa ka ng isang force triangle, so di ba meron ka ditong horizontal. So that is Fx. And then meron kang y component, so that is your Fy. And then yung resultant mo, kapag pinagsama mo yung dalawa, that is considered as your force F. Kung saan ito yung ating theta x, which is, ayan. So again, if you're going to solve for the x component muna, anong gagamitin natin if yung x component? So diba, kung ito is side ng triangle, this Fx is considered your adjacent side. And then itong force F, that will be your hypotenuse. So to solve for Fx, that is just equals lang sa cosine of theta x is equals to Fx all over F. So if you're going to solve for Fx, you will arrive at this equation. So F cosine theta x, or to get the horizontal component or the x component, itong equation na to ang gagamitin. Okay? And for the y component, if you're going to solve for Fy, so ito, di ba siya is yung opposite side ng triangle, or that will be sine of theta x is just equals to Fy all over F. So from that, you will arrive at this equation. And if you're going to solve again for the value of your F, o yung etong, pag pinagsama mo yung dalawa, it will result to this value. So ano nga kamukha ng equation na to? Di ba ito is parang yung Pythagorean theorem lang din natin? So please memorize also this formula, but ito naman nasa dugo na nating mga engineering student. So ayan. So to solve for F, that is just equals the square root of the sum of your Fx squared plus Fy squared. And if you're going to solve for the value of your this angle of inclination na theta x, so that is just equals sa tangent of theta x is equals to Fy over Fx, or itong TOA. Ano? So ayan. So dito lang naman iikot yung mga equation na yan. So pa-memorize na lang ako. But then again, magkaibang scenario kapag ang binigay sa inyo is yung theta y, kung ito yung ibibigay. Ano? So mangyayari lang dyan, magkakabaligtad. Ano? So please review that, kasi mangyayari at mangyayari yun na yung theta y yung ibibigay ko. Okay, so i-discuss na rin natin what if yung slope ng triangle ang ibigay, or yung side ng triangle yung ibigay at hindi yung inclination, yung angle of inclination. So ano bang gagawin doon? So again, this is just a review. So I hope alam pa rin naman to, but ipakita na rin natin. Ano, buburahin ko lang. So may case kasi na ganitong ibibigay sa'yo. So again, you have here your force F, and then yung ibibigay sa inyo is yung slope. So ang kadalasan binibigay dito, yung gamit sa atin. So ito is 3, ito is 4, ito is 5. So hindi given yung theta, itong yung angle dyan, hindi siya binigay. So ganun lang din naman yung concept niya, as long as alam mo itong sokatawang to. Again, yung so, di ba, opposite over hypotenuse. So di ba yung sin theta natin, so that is equals lang sa 3 over 5. So yung ka o cosine, so cosine theta, so adjacent, so that is 4 over 5. So di ba ito is equals lang din dito. So mangyayari, so yung F, if you're going to solve for the Fy, for example, itong given na slope na to, itong Fy, that can be written also as F multiplied by, ano yung nga yung ating sine o yung Fy, so that is just, ito, di ba, sin theta x, itong theta x, ito lang yung ipapalit mo, or F times 3 over 5. And to get the x component, so that is just equals to F times 4 over 5. Okay, so I hope may idea. So if nakalimutan, please try to review this topic, kasi gagamitin natin siya. Ano? Okay, so tungkol saan ba itong diagram na to? Itong nasa tabing to. So this diagram, to make the discussion short, if maalala yung tinatawag nating Cartesian Plane, so yun lang din naman yung concept niya. Ano? Where's the pen? Here. So di ba meron kang x and y axis? So this is your y, this is your x. So di ba may mga ganyan-ganyan yan? So this is positive 1, positive 2, positive 3. This one is negative 1, negative 2, negative 3, etc. So pag pataas yung y, di ba positive, and then pag pababa, negative. Okay, so considering if this first quadrant, what will be the value of your x and what will be the value of y? Di ba yung value ng x is positive and yung y is also positive. So I hope may idea ha. Second quadrant, anong value ng x? Okay, so tama, that is negative and positive. For the third quadrant, okay, correct. So pareho silang negative, negative x, negative y. And for the fourth quadrant, so that is, okay, tama. So positive yung x, negative yung y. So mapapansin nyo dito, ito, sign of fx, sign of fy. And then ito yung direction niya. So up to the right. So imagine mo na lang ito may x and y quadrant. So di ba na under siya doon sa first quadrant? So parehong positive. Itong isa, nandito, so under fourth quadrant. So positive yung x, negative yung y. And so on. So yun lang naman yan. Yan yung diagram na yan. So in this topic, i-apply natin yung condition na yan. Kung saan, consider natin yung sign convention based dun sa Cartesian plane na ginawa natin. Okay guys, so para mas maunawaan nyo yung unang part ng ating discussion, magsosolve tayo ng mga problems. Okay? Okay guys, so try natin sa isang example. So dito, ipapakita ko sa inyo yung using the two methods. So the first one, we have the graphical method, and the second one is analytic method. So ako, I much prefer yung pangalawa, which is the analytical method. So this is just formula based. Yung una kasi, graphical, when we say graphical, i-graph natin siya to solve for the resultant. So, unahin natin yung graphical method. Ano? So, basahin natin yung problem. So, determine completely the resultant of the concurrent force system of the following forces shown in the figure. So, on this figure, meron tayong dalawang force. So, we have here a 300 Newton acting at 20 degrees. Okay? In the direction going to the left. And yung 400 Newton, so going to the right, acting at an angle of 30 degrees. Okay, so anong una natin pwedeng gawin dito? So graphical method again. So by graphical method, so graphical nga, i-graph mo yung ating figure accurately. Ano? So ito, pili ka dito sa dalawa kung alin yung gusto mong unahin. So ako, unahin ko na lang muna si 400 Newton. So i-graph ko lang siya dito. So dapat accurate lang din yung drawing natin. So since 400 Newton yan, yung magnitude niya, so dapat mas mahaba siya compare kay 300 Newton. Okay? So this is your 400 Newton. So lagyan lang natin dito ng ayan. So we have here 400 Newton. So lagyan ko na lang dito yung quadrant. So again, this is acting at an angle of 30 degrees. Next, yung ating force na 300 Newton. So, acting 20 degrees, so medyo mas steep yung kanyang inclination, ayan. And then, mas maikli siya. Okay, so pwede na siguro yan. Okay, so mas maganda, mas accurate dapat yung drawing nyo o yung illustration para mas tama agad siya. Kasi kung maalala nyo siguro doon sa physics nyo, di ba, pinaganto rin siguro kayo ni Ma'am, sinong prop nyo? Ma'am Lescano? So, dapat pantay yung equal sa equation natin. Char lang. So si Ma'am Lescano yung legend, ang prof ng mga prof. Idol ko yan si Ma'am Lescano. So she's one of the reason kung bakit engineer ako ngayon. So shout out kay Ma'am Lescano na talaga namang dalagang-dalaga pa. Okay, so ayun. So from that, coming from the original point, itong initial point mo, so from there, i-plot mo ngayon yung pagdudugsuin mo lang. So from the initial point up to dun sa last point na iyong force. Okay. Wait. Gagamit lang tayo ng ano. Sorry hindi kasi ako masyado pa dito. Kinakapa ko pa rin talaga itong drawing pad. Okay, so that will be our resultant. Okay? So ano yung na-form natin, guys? So naka-form tayo ng shape ng triangle. Tama? Okay. So we all know that this angle, ayan, is equivalent to 30 degrees. Therefore, ano itong angle na to? So tama, that is also equivalent dun sa 30. Okay, so ano yan ha? Guys, please visualize. So, ang concept niyan, yung tinatawag ko dati na Z concept, Z, letter Z. Ayan lang. Na-form ka ng letter Z, diba? Kung ito ay theta, ito, theta din. And then, kung yan ay right triangle, kung ito ay 90, dapat ito, 90 minus theta lang. Ayan na. So, pa-review na lang ako nun. So, we all know that this is 50 degrees. Okay, so this side is equivalent sa 300 and ito, that is equals to 400. So tanggalin na lang natin itong mga lucky. Ayan. Okay, so how can we solve for the value of your R? Guys, again ha, graphical method lang itong ginagamit natin. So to solve for R, paano mo siya makukuha? So tama, using the cosine law. So tanda pa ba yung cosine law? Okay. So, share ko lang ulit. Ito na naman, nagbibigay na naman ako ng tips sa inyo. So, ang palatandaan ko dito, kahit gaano katagal, tanda ko pa rin siya. So, ang palatandaan ko kasi ito yung angle, di ba? So, 50 degrees, 30 plus 20. So, cosine of 50 degrees is equals sa squared nung dalawang side na umipit sa kanya. So, ano yung dalawang side na umipit sa kanya? Di ba yung 50 degrees inipit ng 300 at saka 400. So, sum ng dalawang umipit na side sa kanya. Sum ng squared. So, 300 squared plus 400 squared. And then minus the squared nung katapat niyang side. So, ano bang katapat ng ating cosine 50? Di ba itong si R? So, minus R squared. Divided by twice o 2 times the product nung dalawang side na umipit sa kanya. So, ito kasi palatandaan ko eh. Gusto ko kasi lagi akong iniipit. Alright. So, what will be the value of your R? So, pindutin lang natin sa calcu. So, manipulate mo lang yung equation. Kunin ko lang yung calcu. So, paano ba natin isosolve? Ang dali sana nito kung papel at tunay na calcu eh, no? So, dito ko siya sinosolve sa laptop. So, pindutin natin. Let's use our handy-dandy calcu. So, 300 squared plus 400 squared. And then, sa taas mo to dito, yung 2 times 300 times 400 times cosine 50, and then transpose mo sa kabila to make it negative. So, minus 2 times 300 times 400 cosine 50. Kailangan ko pa bang isulat, guys, yung simplified equation? Hindi na, kaya nyo na yan. Dapat practice kayo dyan. Yung tinititigan nyo pa lang yung equation na simplify nyo na dapat. And then, square root of answer. So, dyan kami trinay ni Sir Jake before. Nagugulat na lang kami sa nangyayari. Pero, it's a matter of practice. So, before, effective sa amin. And then, magiging effective rin sa inyo. Adapt natin. So, 309.4042. So, what is in the unit of this one? So, Newton. Okay, so ayun, and if you want to solve for this side, ayan, so alamin natin yung angle na yan. So that will be, let's just say, I will name this as angle alpha. So pwede rin tayo mag-cosine law since may value na tayo ng iyong resultant. Or, ang pwede natin gawin ay burahin to kasi pangit yung sulat natin. 309.4042. Or pwede kang mag-use ng sine law. So, i-check natin if tama yung lalabas. Ano ba pinapahanap? Completely the resultant. Completely daw. So, kailangan din niya ng magnitude or yung angle ng inclination niya. Okay, so nasa na tayo? Sorry medyo kasi kalito gamitin to eh. So, using sine law. Pero yung sine law, alam ko kasi minsan nagkakaiba yung sagot dito eh. Pero i-verify natin using the cosine law again, ha? So paano nga sine law? Yung side, di ba? Ano bang katapat ng alpha? So, 300 over sine alpha is equals dun sa R na 309.4042 over sine 50. Tama? So, what will be the value of alpha? So, that will be arc sine So taas, 300 sine 50 over 309.4042 and then r sine ano. Or that will be equals lang sa, diretso na natin sa ALQ. So may dumadaang ambulansya. Live po tayo ngayon. This time check natin is 3:46 PM ng hapon. And this time check is brought to you by Angel's Burger. Unang kagat, tinapay lahat. So divided by 309.4042. And then arc sine. So shift sine ito. So that is 47.9671. 47.9671 degrees. Okay, so i-check natin itong alpha f. Pareho lang siya nalalabas using the cosine. Lo, kasya pa ba dito sa tabi? Dito na lang. So cosine of, so this time yung alpha, cosine alpha. So again, yung dalawang side na umipit, which is r and 400. So 309.4042 squared plus 400 squared, and then yung minus yung katapat na squared, minus 300 squared. Dalawa. Over twice nung umipit, to 309.4042 times 400. So alpha is equals to, okay, so music muna tayo habang nagpipindot ako sa ALQ. Hirap kasi pumindot dito gamit yung digital, ano, yan eh. Okay, music muna.
Ako'y saya, ikaw ay akin. Ganda mo sa paningin. Ako ngayon nag-isa. Sana ay tabihan na sa ilalim ng puting ilaw, sa dilaw na buwan. Pakinggan mo ang aking sigaw, sa dilaw na buwan.
2,000 years later.
Okay, so the answer is just the same. So that is 47.9671. So pareho lang pala na. Okay, so that the answer, the final answer, guys, tandaan nyo yung alpha is ito lang. So ang kailangan natin is yung kasama yung 30 degrees. Therefore, yung R natin is 309, final answer to 0.4042 Newton acting at an angle of, so 47.9671 plus 30. So ito yung answer for R. And then yung theta ni R, so with respect to sa x-axis, so 30 plus 47.9671. Or that will be equals to 77.9671 degrees. Okay, so next, we will use now the analytical method. Okay, so check natin if pareho lang ilalabas. So para sa akin nga, I prefer si analytical method. Kasi formula-based lang siya and para sa akin siya yung pinakamadali. Okay? So let's analyze first the 400 Newton load. So again, it is acting at an angle of 30 degrees. Ibig sabihin, meron siyang y and x component. Okay, if pag ganito yung direction niya, so pasaan ba yung kanyang y component? Pag hinati mo to sa dalawa. Diba, ang kanyang y component, so meron siyang going upward, yung y niya, and yung horizontal, since papunta dito, yung x component niya is papunta sa kanan. Okay, how about the 300 Newton? Again, 300 Newton is going to the left, up to the left. So again, up to the left. Nandun na yung direction niya. So yung y component niya, pataas, and yung x component is papunta sa kaliwa. Okay? So again, from our equation dun sa analytical method, di ba yung Rx o yung component ng resultant with respect to the x direction is just equals to summation ng all forces which is going to the x direction. While yung Ry niya So the equation will be just the summation of all forces going in the y direction. Okay, so unahin natin yung Rx. So Rx. So that is equals the summation ng forces x direction. So again, we will assume that all to the right forces is positive. So mahalaga guys yung sign convention dito ah. So what will be the value of Rx? So Rx, pantay ko lang dito. So again, ano nga yung mga horizontal component ng forces natin? So unahin natin si 400 Newton. So 400, so saan mo siya i-multiply para makuha mo yung kanyang x component? So tama. So 400 cosine 30. And then 300. So 300, so what will be the sign of your 300? So pasaan yung kanyang x direction? Di ba yung x niya is going to the left? So kung going to the right is positive, therefore ito, since pakaliwa siya, so that will be negative. And then multiply by cosine 20. Okay? So what will be the value of your Rx? So 400 cosine 30, so gamitin lang natin ang calcu. So 400 cosine 30 minus 300 cosine 20. So that is 64.5024. 64.5024 Newton. Napipindot ko yung button, hindi ko naman alam kung para saan itong mga button dito. Next will be now for the value of your Ry. So this time for the value of Ry, so we will assume that all upward forces is positive. So that is just, yung Ry is the summation of all forces y component. So since pareho naman silang pataas, yung y component ni 400 and 300, positive siya pareho. So to get the y component of 400, saan mo i-multiply? If theta x yung bigay, so sa sine, or 400 sine 30 plus 300 sine 30. So the value of your Ry is equivalent to papalitan ko na lang dito ah. Bako na lang. Sine. Ay. So ito, palitan natin ng plus sine. Kaya pala, guys, ito pala mali na sulat natin. Ito ay 20. Okay, so ano yung value? So 302.6060. 302.600. 302.6060. Again, so yan, meron na tayong value ng Rx at saka Ry. So again, if you're going to compute for the total resultant, so parang Pythagorean theorem lang din yan, di ba? So yung Rx mo, Rx squared plus Ry squared. So, hindi ko na isusulat. Ito na lang, pindutin natin sa alk ito. So, yung answer natin, squared na lang natin. Answer squared plus 64.5024 squared. And then, square root of the answer of that. So, 309.4042. So, 309.4042. So, that is the value of your resultant. So if you're going to compare do sa answer na nakuha natin using analytic method, yung graphical method, so pareho lang na lumabas. Ano? So now, computing natin yung value ng theta. So di ba yung theta can be computed as, so nilipat ko na lang sa kabila ha, di ba? Tangent of theta x, so magiging arctangent ng Ry over Rx. Daming ambulansya dumadaan, ano? So, pindutin natin sa calcu, tangent of 302.6060. So, dapat pala, So, next time, tuturuan ko yung gumamit ng function at store para tinatago lang natin yung sagot. Para hindi tayo pindot ng pindot. Wala, yatang store to. Anong calcu to? So, divided by 64.5024. So, that is 76.9671. Okay, so pareho lang din na nakakuha natin sagot na. So, 77.9671. 0.9671 degrees. Okay, so same answer. So, ibig sabihin, parehong tama yung sagot natin or parehong mali. Joke. So guys, nasa sa inyo kung anong gusto nyo gamitin. It's either gumamit kayo ng analytic method or graphical method, walang problema. Pero ako nga ulit, ang prefer ko gamitin na lang is yung analytical method kasi formula-based lang naman siya. And para sa akin, mas madali na siya para hindi na tayo magaganto-ganto. Ang problema kasi dito, it's good kapag dalawang coplanar force. Paano kapag more than 3 yung ibigay sa'yo? So, doon sa discussion natin, yung dalawa, ko-convert mo muna sa isa. So, paunti ng paunti hanggang makumpit na yan. But anyway, again, mas maganda kung mag-analytical method kayo. Okay, so let's proceed with the next example. Okay guys, so let's proceed with the next problem. So this time under the category of resultant of 3 or more concurrent forces. So for this problem, meron tayong 4 na concurrent forces. So first, you have here a 100 pound which is acting at the first quadrant to the right, up to the right. So given yung slope niya, so 1 vertical, 2 horizontal. So solve na natin yung kanyang hypotenuse. So that is square root of 1 squared plus 2 squared or square root of 5. Or you have the other option, pwede mo naman kunin yung kanyang angle dito, theta. So by using the trigonometric function na tangent. So arctangent ng 1 over 2. But gamitin natin is yung slope na lang niya para since ma-practice din tayo sa paggamit ng Next, you have at 400 pound acting at 30 degrees, so down to the right. And we have here 200 pound acting at 45 degrees, so down to the left, and 300 pound, 60 degrees, acting up to the left. Okay, so again, ganun lang ulit. Let's compute first for the value of your Rx. Or gusto nyo munang, para doon sa nalilito, isa-isahin muna natin. So considering the 100 pound, so ito yung 100 pound, so pasan ang kanyang horizontal. Okay, so papunta siya sa kanan. Sorry, nalilito ako sa kanan-kaliwa eh. Kaliwete kasi ako eh. Ang kaliwa ko nagiging kanan. So 100, so para ma-compute yung kanyang horizontal, so i-multiply mo ng 2 over square root of 5. And yung vertical niya pataas, so 100 multiplied by 1, kasi yun yung vertical component, 1 over square root of 5. So isunod natin yung 400. So yung 400 mo down to the right na 400. Ayan. So ito is 30 degrees. So yung kanyang horizontal component is going to the right. And then yung y component niya is going down. So 400 sine 30. And yung horizontal 400 cosine 30. And next, yung 200 pound down to the left. So you have here 200 and an angle of 45 degrees. Binibilisan ko na ha, unlike sa unang problem na itinitalya natin. So 200 cosine 45. Anyway, magkabaligtad naman yan since 45 degrees yan. Pareho lang ng sagot na lalabas. So 200 sine 45. And yung isang force, so that is up to the left. So this is 60 degrees. And a force of 300. So yung upward niya, so that is 300 sine 60. And yung horizontal, that is 300 cosine 60. Okay, so I hope you have now the idea kung paano siya isosolve. So Rx, again, that is just summation of all forces going to the x direction. Assuming that all to the right is positive. Kasi nga right, itong right natin, ito yung may mga positive values. Okay, so unahin natin yung 100. So papunta siya sa kanan, so positive 100. 2 over square root of 5. And then yung 400, again, papunta rin siya sa kanan, so plus 400 cosine 30. And then yung 200, so going to the left, so minus 200 cosine 45. And last will be yung 300, so plus, so minus din kasi papunta sa kaliwa, so minus 300 cosine 60. Okay, so with that, we will have a value of your Rx. Okay, so isulat muna natin yung Ry para dire-diretso isang pindutan na lang. Ry, that is just summation of forces y, assuming that upward forces as positive equals, so unahin natin yung 100, ito, pataas siya, so 100 multiplied by 1 over square root of 5. And then yung 400 sine 30, so since pababa, so minus 400 sine 30. And next, yung 200 mo, so pababa din siya, so minus 200 sine 45. And then yung isa, so yung 300 pataas, so 300 plus, plus 300 sine 60. Okay, so with that, we will have here a value of your Ry. Okay, so let's use our handy-dandy calculator to solve for the unknown. So let's start with Rx. So 100 times 2 divided by square root of 5. And then plus 400 cosine 30. And then minus 200 cosine 45. Then minus 300 cosine 60. Guys, habang nag-ano tayo video tutorial, pumindot rin kayo sa AlQ. So 144.4315. 4315. So the unit is in pound. So again, I'm using 4 decimal places para mas accurate siya. And then yung isa, so 100 times 1 divided by square root of 5 minus 400 sine 30 minus 200 sine 45 plus 300 sine 60. Okay. Ay, putagis. Syntax error. Huwag kakabahan. May mali lang na pindot. sorry, nagpanic. So, minus 600. So, negative 36.8923. 8924. Okay, so to solve for r, so just take the square root of rx squared plus ry squared. Ko alam kung may ship store to eh. Malam ngayon gumamit guys ng store. Ibang model kasi ito ng calcu kasi sa bawal na kasi may ship solve. Ito store. Ship store. Pwede nyo itago sa mga para hindi kayo paulit-ulit ng pinipindot. Ito si B. And then yung kanina nating napalabas si 144. So I hope tama yung pindot natin. Kasi gamit itong digital itong sa computer. Nagkakamali kasi ako minsan ng sagot. So, i-review ko na lang mamaya. So, ayun na. So, di ba tinago natin sa yung x? So, r a squared plus yung sa b squared. So, yung squared alba b squared ito. So, the answer is 149.0688. 149.0688 pound. So this is your answer. Box it. Box your final answer. And to know the magnitude or the direction, so just take the arctangent. Saan pa ba kasya? Dito na lang. So, sorry. So yung theta m mo, yung theta x, that is just arctangent of ry over rx. So what will be the value of your theta x? So, calculate again. So, ano na lang natin yung negative ba? Divided by alpha. TOA, opposite, tama. So, negative 14 or 14 kasi negative siya. So, 14.3288 degrees. Okay, so paano yung magiging itsura ng kung papalitan mo itong lahat ng to, ito ay single force, yung resultant natin. Tabi. So, gamitan natin ng line. So, kung gagawin mo siya as a single force, i-convert mo to single force. So, anong sabi ng value ng Rx mo? So, di ba positive siya? And then, yung Y mo, negative. So, saan ba positive yung X? Di ba dito sa kanan? And then, saan negative siya? Sa baba. So, nandito siya banda. And then, yung angle niya, 14. So, medyo dikit na dito. Ayan. So, ito yung R mo. So, kung ipapadrawing sa'yo, so this will be your R. Shoot. Hirap talaga gamitin ito. Sorry ha. R, and then this will be your theta x. Okay, so itong apat na force na to, pwede mo siyang isulat ng ito lang, with these values. or this magnitude. Yan. Okay guys, so let's proceed with the next problem. Okay, so let's proceed with the problem number 3. So this time, meron tayong type ng problem which is acting at an inclined surface. So, sa mga ganitong type ng problem, i-apply natin yung principle ng shifting ng axis. So, before, yung ating x and y is vertically downward and horizontal lang. But this time, i-adjust natin yung axis based do sa inclined surface. So, before that, basahin muna natin yung problem and let's determine kung ano ba yung pinapahanap sa problem na to. So the block shown in the figure below is acted upon by its weight W, which has a value of 200 pound, and a horizontal force Q, 600 pound, and pressure P, which is exerted by the inclined plane. The resultant R of these forces is up and parallel. So papunta daw sa taas, acting along parallel dun sa ating inclined surface, thereby sliding the block up it. So papunta siya dito, no? Pagano'n siya. Okay, so determine the value of P and R. Okay, so ang gawin natin, gawa tayo ng free body diagram. Kumbaga, based on this actual force. So again, just like what I've said earlier, ang original axis natin is ganito. Yung original given axis mo is paganyan yung direction. Okay? Oops, tumabingi.
No! God, please, no! No!
Lalo na pagkaliwete. Hindi ko alam kung ba't hindi user-friendly yung kaliwete. Anyway. So, ilatag natin yung mga forces, ha. So, first, we have here a force P. Okay. So, eto siya. So, we have here a force Q. Sorry, Q pala siya. Q with a value of 600 pound. Lagi ko napipindot yung button. Kasi may button dito sa. And then, coming from the vertical, ito kasi, dito sa diagram natin, ito. Maniwala kayo sa hindi, yung angle kasing ito. Ang hirap talaga. Kapag nag-drawing ka dito ng vertical, okay, etong angle na to is equals lang saan? Ayan. Ano yung angle na yan? Di ba yan na-equals lang din sa 30 degrees? So, ibig sabihin, itong force ping to, ilan ang angle niya when it comes with respect to sa vertical natin? Yan. So, the force P, o yung pressure P, wag malilito doon sa pressure, kasi normally, ang unit ng pressure is force over area. But yung pressure na ini-indicate niya dito, o yung sinasabi sa problem na to, is in terms of the units of force. So, acting in this direction. Ayan. And then, you have, ano yung angle niya ulit dito? So, this is, 30 plus 15, 45. Okay guys, huwag malilito kung paano nakuha to. Yung 30. So, by trigo yan, ha. Pakita na nga natin. Di ba ito, maa-form siya ng triangle? Naka-right angle siya. Ayan. Okay. So, ito, given as 30. So, ito, 90, ito, 60. Okay, tama? Ngayon, kung magdodrawing ka ng vertical line dito, ayan. So, ito yung magiging ano mo ngayon. Ito yung magiging 90. And then, ito, since 60 to, so ito magiging 90 minus 60. Because we all know that the sum of all your interior angle ng triangle is equal sa 180. Okay, so, yun ay 30 lang din. Ano? So, yun ha. So, dito tatalas ang inyong mga mata. So, dapat kita nyo, yung nakikita ko, kung anong angle yun, etc. Okay, so we're done with that. We have there 45 degrees, as shown here in the figure. And then, we have here the weight W. So, ang weight mo naman lagi is always downward or papunta sa center of gravity ng Earth. So, we have here W with a value of 200 pound. And then, from there, sabi nga sa ating problem, meron ka dito na resultant. So, ipakita ko na lang yung direction. So, acting along upward dun sa iyong plane. So, you have here the value of r, which is still unknown, hinahanap sa problem. So, acting along dito sa plane. So, ibig sabihin ito ay equals lang din sa angle na to, 30 degrees. Okay, so I think we can now solve for the value of P and R. Actually, pwede pala natin gamitin kahit hindi na tayo mag-shift ng axis. Kasi 2 equation, 2 unknown. Pero, para lang for the sake of this topic din, para masanay lang din kayo kung paano ba nag-shift ng axis, ipapakita ko na lang din. So, paano ba ginagawa yun? So, kulayan ko na lang ng green. Ang mangyayari lang, i-adjust ko based dun sa given na inclined plane. So, mag-a-adjust nga siya. So, pag ganito, ay, wala pala tayong Gumita ko lang ng straight tool. So, ayan. Pantay na siya ngayon doon sa R. So, this will be your new x-axis. Okay? So, tawagin ko siya as x prime. So, before, ito yung x. Okay? And then, ito yung y. So, this time, since nag-adjust tayo ng axis, ganito yung magiging itsura ng bagong x-axis. And then, ito, okay, so this will be your y prime axis. Okay? So, from that, so ito, magiging na ulit siya. So, diba ito yung 30? Ito, magiging 15 degrees. Okay, so ang gagawin nyo lang, tip, para sa mga ganitong klase ng problem, medyo nakakalito talaga siya. So, ang gawin nyo, itagilid nyo rin, itilt nyo rin yung ulo nyo based doon sa itinilt ng bago nating axis para tumuwid siya. I know, magmumukha lang kayong ewan dito, pero malaking tulong yung pagtatagilid din ng ulo. Kasi parang dumiretso ulit siya, no? Alright. Okay, so, let's proceed. So, ang gagawin ko, since this is my new x-axis, sasabihin ko that kapag nag-summation ako ng forces x, ano nga ulit yung equation natin, guys? Tama. So, diba yung ating resultant R can be compute as your Rx plus Ry, yung squared niya, and then square root. Dun saan yung Rx, that is just equals to summation ng forces, all x component. But, take note, since bago yung axis natin, pag ganito yung direction ng positive. Okay? And then, kapag nag-summation ka ng Ry, pasaan yung direction ng positive. So, along dito sa axis na to, or pag ganyan yung direction ng positive. Okay? Acting along this direction. So, that will be your summation of forces y. Okay, so let's start first for Rx. So, yung Rx mo, since acting along the inclined, kung mapansin nyo dito, parallel siya dito. Therefore, I could say that yung Ry mo in this situation is equals to 0. Kasi ang merong alam value is yung Rx acting along the plane. Ito. Okay. So, Rx is just equals dun sa summation ng all forces in this direction. All forces x in that direction. Okay? So, with that, hanapin natin yung mga component na horizontal. But, as you can see, wala pa tayong value ng P. So, I think, ang mas maganda natin gawin is use this equation first. Kasi dito, dalawa yung unknown. Wala ka pang Rx, wala ka pang value ng P. But if you're going to use first the equation for Ry, that is summation of all forces in the y direction, knowing that this direction is positive. So, ano yung mga forces na may ganun direction? Okay, so again, itilt nyo yung ulo nyo. Okay. So, yung Ry natin, again, from the problem, that is equivalent to 0. Okay? So, yun. Tama. Hindi pala natin ito masosolve if ito yung gagamitin nating axis kasi tatlo yung unknown. Ry, Rx, at saka P. Indeterminate siya. Kulang tayo ng isang equation kasi ang available lang equation is itong dalawa. So wala tayong mapapalabas. So that's why kailangan pala natin mag-shift talaga ng axis para may ma-eliminate tayong isang equation. Or may mapalabas tayong isang equation kasi with this new axis, alam natin na ang Ry mo will be equals to 0. Okay. So balik tayo dito. Ry, summation of forces y. So unahin natin si 600 pound, yung Q. Okay. So from this, if titingnan mo mabuti yung force natin, di ba pag ganito yung direction niya? So if you're going to consider the component of that in terms of y prime and x prime, pag ganito yung kanyang y prime component, pag ganyan. So ito si qy, and then si qx, papunta dito. So with that, alam natin na positive yung qx, yung qy is negative, kasi pababa siya ganun. And then, ina-analyze pa lang natin ha. Next, itong si p. So si p mo, ang y component niya is papunta dito. So that will be your py. And then yung x is papunta dito. Okay, so ano sunod natin gagawin? Hanapin yung w. And if you consider this new x prime and the y prime axis, these are the component or yung kanyang y and x component. So yung w mo has a y prime component in this direction. Ang hirap talaga gumamit nitong ano. So pag ganito yung kanyang y prime component, so that will be negative. So pangalanan natin wy, and yung x niya is going in this direction. So magiging negative rin yung wx. So meron pa ba tayong kailangan kunan ng component niya? Wala na. So we can now use this equation. Okay, so unahin natin si sino bang gusto niyo unahin? Si qy. So paano natin makukuha yung qy? So yung 600 mo, so that is negative kasi pababa. So pagtang lang yung kukulay ng marker to black. Okay, so 600. So paano ang kanyang direction? So siya ay naka 30 degrees. Tama ba? So that is qy or 600 multiplied by sine. So sine 30 degrees. Okay, so as next, yung 200 natin. So since ano rin siya, pababa, so that will be negative also. So minus 200. Ano yung angle niya dito? So ano ba yung angle na to? Ito 30 degrees, di ba? Ito, ilan to? So tama, that is also equal sa 30 degrees because of this, no? Kung ano yung angle na to, ito rin din siya. Okay, so 200. So that is also, ano bang ano siya? Sine or cosine? Cosine. Nakita ko ba't cosine? So again, tagilid nyo yung ulo nyo ha, para hindi kayo nalilito doon sa mga angle na pinapakita ko or kung kailan nyo gagamitin si sine and cosine. Kenji! 200 cosine 30. And next will be our p. So siya lang yung nagiging positive value. So that is plus p cosine 15. Okay. So mahanap natin yung value ng p. What is the value of p? So let's just use our handy dandy calculator. So 600 sine 30. Oops. Then so negative siya, no? Ang ginawa ko guys, kaya positive transpose ko to sa kabila. So plus 200 cosine 30 degrees divided by cosine 15. So that is 489.897 489.8979 so that is in pounds. Okay, so we have now the value of p. So with that, we can now solve for the value of your r. So this time, assuming that in this direction is positive, so that is your fx, okay, which is yung summation of forces x, that is your value of your rx. Kung saan yung rx, so since wala naman tayo yung value ng ry, so that will be your total value of r, which is equals to, okay, so baba ko lang yung equation. So kunin natin yung mga x components. So let's start with q. So siya ay positive, ano, kasi papunta sa in this direction. So 600 cosine 30. And then what else? We have w. So ang w mo is going in this direction. So siya ay minus w na 200 and then sine 30. And last will be for the value of p. So since may value na tayo ng p, so that is, lagay ko na lang dito sa baba, hindi na kasi kasya. So pasan ang direction niya, papunta rin doon. So minus 489 0.8979. So, paano mo makuha yung x? So, that is sine, okay? So, sine 15. Okay, so, pindutin lang natin. So, lagay ko na lang ang sagot dito, ha? This will be the value of your r. So, pindutin mo lang sa calcu. So, clear lang natin dito. So, that is 600 cosine 30 minus 200 sine 30, and then minus 489.8979 sine 15. So the answer is 292.820. So 292.8203. 8203. So pound. Okay, so that's our final answer. Okay, so let's proceed to the next problem.